Transitioning into retirement can be overwhelming. Most workers during their careers, they've used their knowledge and their skills to create an income that they've been using to spend to pay for their living expenses for the better half of 4 or 5 decades. And now, instead of earning a relatively predictable stream of income, retirees have to figure out how to replace it. The way that you spend down your savings in retirement is just as crucial as how you've saved those funds in the first place. Each withdrawal can potentially influence your financial longevity, your exposure to risk, and the taxes that you pay. The challenge then is creating a retirement withdrawal strategy that's both tax efficient and sustainable. I believe a thoughtful approach to how you spend down your money in retirement can have significant benefits. Not only does it potentially increase your ability to meet your long-term goals and reduce your risk of running out of money, but it can also reduce your financial anxiety and potentially maximize a future inheritance that you leave to your beneficiaries. I'm Michael Carbone. I'm a certified financial planner in Greater Boston, and I work with pre-retirees and retirees across the country to help them to ensure that they're doing everything that they possibly can to reduce their financial risk and maximize their likelihood of meeting their long-term goals. In this video, I'll review how you can be smart about how you spend down your money in retirement. So the first thing that I'll review is the concept of a withdrawal rate. Although withdrawal rates are relatively simple and basic, and I think they're probably overlooked in many cases, I do think that they're incredibly useful and they can be a great tool for retirees to get a general understanding of how much they can safely spend without overtaxing their resources, but at the same time not spending too little. So withdrawal rate is the amount of money that you're pulling from your money as a percentage of your total financial assets. The 4% safe withdrawal rate is often considered to be the optimal standard for retirees who are looking to maximize the amount of money that they can pull from their money without taxing their resources or their assets by too much that they're at risk of outliving them. So how does the safe withdrawal rate work? It's really simple. Assume you've got a portfolio that is worth $2 million and you're looking to see how much you can safely spend with relatively low risk of ever running out of money. So in this case, the safe withdrawal rate, you're simply taking your portfolio value and you are applying it by 4%. So the theory behind this is that you can spend $80,000 a year from your $2 million portfolio, giving yourself a raise each year for inflation with very low risk of running out of money. Now, it's important to also remember that this is a before tax number, so assume that you pay 15% on average, for the, in taxes for the money that you're pulling from your money. Some of it's coming from retirement accounts, you're paying dividends and capital gains and so on. But just assume that's the case. You can spend on $80,000. If you have a 15% average tax rate, you can spend in theory $68,000 a year off a $2 million portfolio in retirement for the rest of your life without running out of money. Now, the rule was developed by a retired financial advisor, William Benjamin, in the 90s, and he concluded this by studying historical market data, which brings into question whether or not 4% is the appropriate safe withdrawal rate today, and why not 3.5% or 4.5%? And this is a highly debated topic in the financial planning world, and I really just don't find that to be a very productive argument, because it's really just meant to be used as the guideline. It's a standard rate that you're using, and it really doesn't take into consideration your personal circumstances or your individual situation. So I think it's helpful to also understand what the assumptions are that the rule is predicated on. So here's some of the key assumptions that I'd suggest you consider, especially if you plan on relying on the 4% rule explicitly when determining how much to spend in retirement. So the rule assumes that the retiree is invested normally, with half of their money invested in stocks, with the rest in bonds. This, of course, isn't always the case and should be considered. The rule assumes that withdrawals are taken proportionally from stocks and bonds, but in reality, if you're disciplined or if you're working with a professional, chances are that your asset sales won't be uniform and you'll likely spend down bond money during recessions and so on. The rule assumes that the retiree is only looking to maintain their lifestyle, potentially ignoring legacy, charitable, and other spending priorities. The rule assumes a 30-year horizon, which is generally a relatively long retirement, but certainly not the outcome for everybody, depending on when they retire and how their health is. The rule also assumes that the retiree has a constant need to withdraw from their assets throughout the whole period, ignoring inflation. In reality, the timing of your cash needs may be less uniform. So, for example, if you retire prior to collecting Social Security, chances are that you'll need more from your portfolio during those years before your benefits start. Regardless of an argument for or against the 4% withdrawal rule, I believe that it can be a incredibly valuable tool for retirees to ensure that they're not spending too much or spending too little from their portfolio in retirement. If you're interested in learning about how you can use this concept to back in to a safe amount of money or a safe savings amount to support your retirement spending, I've included a link in this video. I think it's right at the top that you can click, and it'll bring you to another video that I've created that explains that. All right, so let's take a deeper dive and talk about the more technical side of timing your withdrawals. So the art of timing your withdrawals in retirement can be a really crucial step for optimizing your tax and your income tax liabilities. It can help you, ensure that you still have the opportunity to grow your money, and it can greatly reduce your odds of running out of money during retirement. So the conventional wisdom for the order of which types of accounts that you should spend down is that you should spend down your taxable non-retirement accounts first. Once they become depleted, you spend down your pre-tax traditional retirement accounts, your 401ks, your IRAs, and then finally spending down your Roth tax-free accounts last. The intuition behind this is that tax advantage accounts like 401ks and Roth IRAs are tax advantage, and the true benefit of having money invested in a tax advantaged account is the value of time and the compounding of those tax savings. So the intuition behind it is that the longer that you have your money in a tax advantage account, the more benefit. So if you have money outside of retirement accounts, the conventional wisdom is to spend those first. That being said, this is a blanket approach, and while I do believe that there are strong merits to taking this tack, I do believe that the average retiree would benefit more from finding the mix of different types of accounts that better align with their tax and investment situation. So to determine the optimal mix of different types of accounts to draw from and which order to do so in any given year, the first step is to understand how you're being taxed. And based on the income that you're bringing in, from Social Security and from pensions, and then also from the investment returns that you're earning on your money that's held outside of retirement accounts. So there are generally two ways that the average person pays taxes on their income. That's in the form of ordinary income and of long-term capital gains and dividends. Ordinary income pays taxes at the federal and sometimes state level. Federal income taxes are taxed on a progressive scale, meaning that the higher your income, the higher the tax rate that you're paying. But it's important to remember that this is it's not a retroactive tax. So if you have income that exceeds a marginal bracket, then only the marginal income above that bracket is going to pay the higher tax. Everything below it will pay the tax bracket that falls under. Common sources of ordinary income would be wages, pensions, part of your Social Security, retirement account distributions, or interest that you earn on bonds that are held outside of retirement accounts. The second type of tax is the long-term capital gains or profits and dividends that are qualified that are held in non-retirement taxable accounts. These taxes are also assessed at the federal and sometimes state level. And also similar to the ordinary income tax, capital gains taxes and dividends are also taxed on a progressive scale, although it's on a different scale than the ordinary income. So depending on your income, your long-term capital gains and dividends held in non-retirement accounts can be taxed at either 0, 15, or 20% at the federal level. But for most retirees, you'll be paying either 0 or 15%, and that's because the 20% capital gains tax is only for those that have extremely high income. The progressive nature of each of these types of taxes can create a lot of potential tax saving opportunities for retirees that should definitely be considered when you're deciding which accounts to pull from in any given year. But as with most potential opportunities, there are also some unintended consequences that can be triggered. So it's important to be cognizant of these, when you're trying to take advantage of a tax saving opportunity. But so for the average retiree, I believe that the most common tax saving opportunities are, for starts, if during your early retirement years before you're required to start pulling money from your pre-tax retirement accounts, even if you have other money that's held outside of retirement accounts that you can spend, one option is to start pulling from retirement accounts to realize the taxes on that. If in the future when you're required to start taking it out, you'll be paying at a higher marginal tax rate. And so here's just a basic example. You have, this couple has $40,000 each from Social Security after deductions. Their taxable income is roughly $40,000. So as you can see, they're paying taxes on the margin at the 12% federal bracket. And so say they have a lot of money in the retirement account, so when they're forced to start pulling out that money, much of it will be taxed up in here. So what they can do is they can try and fill up that bracket. They have around $50,000 left before they creep into the 22% bracket. So they can intentionally withdraw money from this account up into that 22% rate. Remember, it's not retroactive, but they can do so as a way to save 10% based on today's tax brackets compared to when they have to start taking it out in the future. Another strategy that sort of smells the same is instead of withdrawing that money for spending, for someone that doesn't necessarily need the funds and they have a decent amount of money and maybe they're concerned about the tax rate that their future beneficiaries will pay when they inherit that money, they can do the same thing, but instead of spending the money, they can convert the money into Roth. This can be a good opportunity to do relatively cheap Roth conversions during years where you have low income. And then finally, a third common potential opportunity that I think is probably overlooked by a lot of people is that if you have income that's below the 12% rate as of now, if you have income, taxable income after deductions below $89,000 today, you can sell stock in taxable accounts and realize profits, and you can earn dividends and pay no federal capital gains taxes on those profits and dividends. So this can be a powerful thing for someone that has, say, an appreciated stock position that they're looking to unwind, and they have very low income in a year. Using the same example, they have $50,000 before they creep into that rate and start paying federal capital gains taxes. So if they need cash and they need to start maybe de-risking their portfolio, then this can be an opportunity for them to sort of pull that trigger, sell some stock, realize capital gains, and only pay taxes at the state level if that's if that's applicable to them. So a third opportunity. But so with all these opportunities, like I said before, there's sometimes drawbacks to doing them, and so I'm going to dive into that right now. So the more common unintended consequences of taking action are that in doing so, you're generally creating some sort of income that can, push you over some limit that inadvertently leads to more of your Social Security being taxed or your Medicare premiums increasing. The way that Social Security taxation works is that they'll look at your income. They have their own formula. It's called a provisional income formula. And what they'll do is they'll say if your provisional income is above a certain amount, we'll tax, either half of your benefits or we'll tax up to 85% of your benefits. And so if you trigger that, a higher taxability of your Social Security, there could be, incremental taxes paid that would only offset any benefits that I was mentioning before. And the same goes for Medicare. There is a surcharge known as the IRMA, and so it's a similar concept. If you have higher income, they'll look back 2 years and say, okay, you had higher income, we're going to make you pay more for your Medicare premiums. So it's important to weigh these potential drawbacks. If you're going to trigger something like that, then it's important to make sure that any decision that you're making to try and benefit is going to offset and produce incremental value to you above what you're paying for the on the other hand. All right, so in addition to considering taxes when you're deciding which accounts to pull from, you should also be considering how your decisions will affect your investment strategy. And what I mean by that is not only are you considering how pulling this money from an account will affect your income, but you're also considering how the investments that you'll have to sell to pull it from that account and spend it. So generally during normal markets, when stock returns are moderate, you don't have you're not coming off of a really down year, you're not towards the long end of a bull market, and you're just kind of in the middle. It's generally wise to spend money proportionally. And so, for example, if you have 60% of your money in stocks and 40% in bonds, you're selling 60% from your stocks and 40% from your bonds to fund your spending needs. And you're doing so that you can maintain your asset allocation. It's a way to naturally, rebalance your portfolio over time. And then during periods of really strong markets, you have a really long period behind you of market growth and really strong stock returns. It may be wise to sell off of stocks to meet your spending needs. So, for example, if you have, if you're 10 years into a bull market and you need to take 40 grand to buy a car, it may be wise just to sell some stock. And this is also another kind of natural way to rebalance your portfolio and bring it back down to your target allocation. And then finally, if you're in a recession and your stock investments are down in value, it's sometimes wise to leave that money alone and hopefully position it and keep it invested for a potential rebound. And during that time, sell off and live off of your bonds, which in some cases will even be up in value during a recession, although past performance can't guarantee future results. It's typically a better asset to live off of during a period of economic weakness. And so the point of all of this is to not simply just sell your assets blindly when you're spending your money and pay only attention to income taxes. Everything should be done in accordance with one another so that you can fully optimize your withdrawals, so that they meet your, your income taxes and your investment strategy, and everything sort of works together as one. All right, so in summary, thanks for listening to my babbling first off. But so the goal of any withdrawal strategy is you're trying to optimize your withdrawals such that you're minimizing your income taxes, you're managing your risk, and you're hopefully preserving your assets for your later years and reducing your financial anxiety. The 4% safe withdrawal rule can be a great guide to avoiding spending too little or too much from your portfolio. The conventional wisdom is to spend your taxable non-retirement accounts first, your tax-deferred pre-tax retirement accounts second, and then finally your tax-free Roth accounts last. It's important to understand how your withdrawals may potentially affect your tax and your investment situation. There may be potential opportunities, but it's important to also remain cognizant of any potential unintended consequences and to ensure that any decision that you're making offers an incremental benefit to any potential drawbacks. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with me and watch this video, and I hope you learned some valuable information to better your situation and to spend your money wiser. If you feel that you benefit from a complimentary consultation with me, I've included a link in the description of this video. Just click that and it'll bring you right to my calendar to set up a meeting with me. And as always, I wish you the very best of luck, and I hope to hear from you soon.